A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Narrated by Room 8.
Once upon a time, upon a Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house.
Humbug.
Christmas a humbug? Uncle, you don't mean that. I am sure.
I do out upon Merry Christmas if I had my will. Every idiot who goes around about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding. He should.
Uncle!
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it, but you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone. Then much good may it do you. Much good has it ever done for you.
I have always thought of Christmas time as a good time, a kind, forgiving, cheerful, pleasant time. There's for Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket. I believe that it has done me good, and I say God bless it.
Good afternoon.
I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
His nephew left the room without an angry word. But the clerk, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let two other people in.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute who suffer greatly and pleasant time. A few of us are endeavoring to raise our funds to buy some poor, some meat and drink and means of warmth. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
You wish to be anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. Since you asked me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas. I can afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the prisons and workhouses. They cost enough, and those who badly off must go there.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
If they would rather die, they'd better do it.
The hour of shutting up the counting house arrived. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner into his usually melancholy tavern and went home to bed.
Now it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door of his house, except that it was very large, and yet Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face, with a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in the dark cellar. As Scrooge looked at this, it was a knocker again. He said,
Pooh, pooh, pooh,
and closed the door with a bang. The sound resounded through the house like thunder.
bang, 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 bang.
Every room above and every cask in the white merchant cellars below
Bang, bang, bang.
appeared to have a separate peals of echoes
Bang, 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 bang.
of its own.
Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs. Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for its being very dark. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it.
Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Doubled locked himself in, which is not his custom. Thus, unsecured against surprise, he put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap and sat down before the very low fire to take his cool.
As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened upon a bell, a disused bell, that hung in the room. It was with great astonishment and with a strange dread that as he looked, he saw this bell began to swing.
Ding, ding, ding.
Soon it rang out loudly.
Ding, 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 ding.
and so did every bell in the house. This was succeeded by a clinking noise. Clang, clang. Deep down below is a some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar.
Then he heard the noise much louder. On the floors below. Then coming up the stairs. Then coming straight toward his door.
It came on through the heavy door. And a specter passed into the room before his eyes, and upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up as though it cried. I know him, Marley's ghost.
What do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who are you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
The ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he was quite used to it.
You don't believe in me.
I don't.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. You may be an undigested bit of beef, but a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of undrown potato. There's more gravy than more of grave about you, wherever you are.
The spirit raised a frightful cry.
Mercy dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me? Why do spirits walk the earth? And why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk along his fellow man and travel far and wide, and if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. I cannot rest, I cannot stay, I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me, in life my spirits never rode beyond our money-chinking hole, and weary journeys lie before me.
Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the spectre going on at this rate, and began to quake exceedingly.
I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance to hope of escaping my fate. You will be haunted by 3 spirits. Except the first tomorrow night, when the bell is tolled, one expect the second on the next night at the same hour, the third upon the next night, when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more.
Scrooge tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable. And being from the emotion he had undergone, of the fatigue of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, he went straight to bed, without undressing, and fell asleep on the instant.
Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me? I am. Who and what are you? I'm the ghost of Christmas past.
As the word was spoken, they passed through the walls and stood in the busy thoroughfare of a city. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shop that here, too, it was the Christmas time. The ghost stopped at the certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it.
Know it, I apprenticed here.
They went in at a sight of an old gentleman, Welsh wig, sitting behind such a high desk he had 2 inches hollow. He must his head against the ceiling. Scrooge cried in great excitement.
Why, it's old Fezziwig. Bless his heart. It's Fezziwig alive again.
Yo-ho there, Ebenezer Dick. A living and a moving picture of Scrooge's former self, a young man came abruptly in, opponent by his falling.
Yo-ho, my boy, said Fezziwig. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up before a man can say Jack Robinson. Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room. Clear away. There is nothing they wouldn't have cleared away, or couldn't have cleared away. And with old Fezziwig looking on it, was done in a minute. The warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter night.
In came a fiddler with a music box, went up to a lofty desk and made a orchestra out of it and tuned like a filthy stomach aches. Came in a fiddler with a music box and went up the lofty desk and made an orchestra out of it and tuned like a filthy stomach ache. In came Mrs. Fizwig, one vast smile, and came three Miss Fizzywigs being in love with. And they all came one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling, and they came anyhow and everyhow. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands half around it and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, around and around, old top couple always turning up in the wrong place.
When the clock struck 11, this ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fuzziwig shaking hands with every person as he or she went out, wishing him or her a Merry Christmas.
A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude.
Now, a small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. He has spent but a few pounds of your money, 3 or 4 perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves this price?
It's not that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service a pleasure or a toil. To say his power lies in the words and looks, and things impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. Spirit, remove me from this place. Haunt me no longer.
As he struggled with his spirit, he was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and farther of being in his own bedroom. He had barely time to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep.
Come in, and you know me better, man. I'm the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You have never seen the like of me before. Touch my robe.
Scrooge did as he was told, and held it fast. The room and its contents all vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets upon a snowy Christmas morning. Scrooge and the ghost passed on invisible straight to Scrooge's cart, and on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinkles of his torch. Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit.
What has ever got your precious father then, and your brother Tiny Tim?
Cried the 2 young Cratchits, who were everywhere at once. In came Bob, the father, the threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim put on his shoulder. At last, Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch, and has his limbs supported by an iron frame.
And how did little Tim behave?
As good and better. Somehow he gets box clothes, sitting by himself too much, and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember. Upon Christmas Day, he made the lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Master Peter and the 2 young Cratchits went to fetch the goose, with which they returned in high procession.
Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy ready beforehand,
in a little saucepan hissing hot. Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce. Martha dusted the hot pans. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table. The two young Cratchits set chairs for everybody, not forgetting themselves, and crammed spoons into their mouths, lest they should shrink for goose before their turn came to be helped.
At last the dishes were set on, and grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause, as Mrs. Cratchit, looking slowly all along the carving prepared to plunge it into the breast. But when she did, and when the long-expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight arose all around the board. And Tiny Tim, excited by the two young Cratchits on the table with the handle of his knife, and feebly cried, "Hurrah!"
But now, the plates being changed by Miss Belinda, Miss Cratchit left the room alone to make pudding up and bring it in.
Mrs. Cratchit entered, smiling proudly, with the pudding like a speckled cannonball, so hard and firm, blazing in half of a quatrain of ignited brandy, and bedight with Christmas holly stuck into the top.
But now the plates being changed by Miss Belinda, Miss Cratchit left the room alone to take the pudding up and bring it in.
At last the dinner was all done. The cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up, while the Cratchit family drew around the hearth, while the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and cracked noisily. They were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time. And when they faded and looked happier, yet bright sprinklings in the spirit's torch at parting, Scrooge had his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim until the last.
But the whole scene passed off, and he and the spirit were again upon their travels. What much they saw, and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. Suddenly, as they stood together in an open place, the bells struck. Bong, 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 bong. 12.
Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it no more. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him.
Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any spirit I have ever seen. Will you not speak to me? Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any spirit I have ever seen. Will you not speak to me?
It gave him no reply. They hinted straight before them.
Lead on, the night is waning fast, and it's precious time to me, I know. Lead on, spirit.
They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city weather seemed to spring up about them. But there they were in the heart of the merchant.
The spirit stopped beside one little knot of businessmen. Observing that the hand was pointed to them, Scrooge advanced to listen to their talk.
I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Last night, I believe.
What has he done with his money?
I haven't heard company perhaps. He has left it in. That's all I know. The scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bare, uncurtained bed. A pale light rising in the outer air fell straight upon his bed, and on it, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this unknown man.
Spirit, let me see some tenderness
connected
with a death or a dark chamber. Your spirit will be forever present to me.
The ghost conducted him to poor Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found the mother and the children seated round the fire.
Quiet, very quiet. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner, and sat looking up at Peter, who had a book before him. The mother and her daughters were engaged in needlework, but surely they were very quiet.
The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face.
The color hurts my eyes. They're better now again. It makes them weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the world. It must be near his time.
Past it rather, but I think he has walked a little slower than he used these few last evenings, Mother.
I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder very fast indeed, but he was very light to carry, and his father loved him so that it was no trouble, and there is your father at the door.
She hurried out to meet him, and Bob came in. His tea was ready for him, and they all tried who should help him it most. Then the two young Cratchits got upon his knees and laid each child a little cheek against his face, as if they said, "Don't mind it, Father. Don't be grieved."
Bob was very cheerful with them, and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He looked at the work upon the table, and praised Mrs. Cratchit and all the girls.
You went today then, Robert?
Yes, my dear, could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there on a Sunday, my little child.
Spectre, something informs me that our parting moment is in hand. I know it, but I know not how. Tell me what man that was with the covered face.
The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him to a dismal, wretched, ruinous churchyard.
The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. Scrooge crept toward his falling finger, read upon the stone of neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Am I that man who lay upon thy bed?
No, spirit. Oh, no. Spirit, hear me.
I am not the man I was.
I will not be the man I must have been.
Why, show me this, if I am past all hope.
Show me that I yet may change these shadows you have shown me by an utter life.
I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year.
Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on the stone.
Holding up his hands in one last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost.
Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, time before him was his own, to make amends. And he was checked in his transport by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard.
Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist, no night. Clear, bright, stirring golden day.
What's today, my fine fellow?
Today, why Christmas Day?
It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. Hello, my fine fellow.
Hello.
Do you know the Potter's in the next street, but one at the corner?
Wait, the one as big as me? I should hope I do.
An intelligent boy, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one.
What, the one as big as me?
What a delightful boy. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck.
It's hanging there now.
Is it? Go and buy it.
Waka.
No, I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here, that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man, and I will give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes, and I'll give you half a crown. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim.
Scrooge dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets.
The people were by this time pouring forth as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present and walking with his hands behind him. Scrooge regarded everyone with a delightful smile.
He looked so irresistibly pleasant in a word that 3 or 4 good-humored fellows said,
Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you.
He was early at the office next morning. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late.
The clock struck 9. No Bob, a quarter past. No Bob. Bob was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time.
Bob's hat was off before he opened the door. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen, as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
Hello. What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?
I'm very sorry, sir. I am behind my time.
Now I'll tell you my friend. I'm not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer, and therefore I am about to raise your salary.
Bob trembled.
A Merry Christmas, Bob. A Merry Christmas, Bob,
Said Scrooge as he clapped him on the back.
A Merry Christmas, Bob, my good fellow. Then I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and help your struggling family.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and definitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father.
He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world.
Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but his own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well.
May that be truly said of us and all of us.
And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone.